I thought it was just a coincidence. I stretched my arms above my head. A second later, across the room, Oliver stretched too, back arched, tail curled, exactly like he was matching me. I yawned. He yawned right after. I scratched the back of my head, half paying attention, half thinking about my morning coffee. Oliver lifted one paw, looked me straight in the eyes, and scratched behind his ear the same way. I froze. That was the moment I realized my cat wasn't just watching me, he was copying me. And somehow, every single day after that, he got better at it. Oliver came into our lives 8 months ago, a scrawny orange rescue with 2 big ears and eyes that never seemed to blink. The shelter said he'd been found alone near a parking lot, no collar, no story. From the first night, he had this habit of watching, not the toys, not the food, us. At first we didn't think anything of it. Cats watch things, that's what they do. We figured he was just cautious, still learning the house, still learning us. We were wrong. It started small. I'd sit down on the sofa after work, and Oliver would jump up beside me and settle into the exact same position, legs tucked the same way, head tilted the same angle. I'd cross my arms while watching TV, and a few seconds later I'd glance over and find him with both front paws folded against his chest, staring at the screen like he understood the plot. My wife noticed it first. She called me into the kitchen one evening, phone already recording. "Watch this," she said, and raised one eyebrow at him. Oliver tilted his head. She leaned forward slightly. He leaned forward too, ears forward, eyes locked on her face like he was waiting for the next move. We tried it again and again. Every time, he matched us, not perfectly, not instantly, but close enough that it stopped feeling like an accident. By the third night, the whole family was in on it. My daughter sat cross-legged on the floor, and Oliver arranged himself the same way, tail wrapped around his paws, instead of a lap. My son pretended to sneeze, and Oliver flinched his whole body in response, ears pinned back for a moment before settling again. We laughed about it, we filmed it. We didn't understand it. What we didn't know yet, what none of us could have guessed that first week, was that this wasn't some fluke, some cute one-off trick a cat happened to fall into. Oliver wasn't reacting. He was learning us, piece by piece, movement by movement, like he was trying to figure out exactly what it meant to belong somewhere. And he was only just getting started. Mornings became the strangest part of the day. I'd wake up, stretch, and roll out of bed. Oliver would already be sitting at the foot of the mattress, watching. The second my feet hit the floor, he'd stretch too, same slow arch, same little shiver at the end, like he'd practiced it in his sleep. I'd walk to the bathroom to brush my teeth. Oliver would follow, hop up onto the counter, and sit perfectly still beside the sink, eyes tracking every motion of my arm like he was studying the technique. Downstairs, I'd pour coffee. He'd trot over to his water bowl and sit beside it in the exact same posture I had at the counter, like he thought breakfast was something you performed, not just ate. It was funny. It was also, if I'm honest, a little unsettling. No cat behaves like this. But Oliver did, every single day, without fail. Things got harder to explain the morning I decided to work out in the living room. I dropped down for push-ups, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Oliver had flattened himself to the floor beside me, front legs extending and collapsing in some rough, wobbly imitation. He couldn't hold the position. He kept sliding sideways, but he kept trying. Then I moved into jumping jacks. Oliver had no way to copy that. Instead, he flopped onto his back and flailed all 4 legs in the air, like his brain understood something was supposed to happen but his body couldn't figure out what. I laughed so hard I had to stop mid-set. Family game night made it official. We took turns doing silly poses, arms out, one-legged balances, exaggerated faces, and Oliver matched something in every single one. Even my grandmother, who moves slowly and carefully these days, got a turn. She shuffled across the room at her usual unhurried pace, and Oliver walked beside her, matching her stride step for step, tail low, patient. She laughed until she had to wipe her eyes. Word started to get around. Friends who visited the house would sit down, and within minutes, Oliver would be studying them the way he studied us. Cautious at first, ears forward, eyes narrowed slightly, like he was deciding whether this new person was worth the effort. Then he'd settle into their exact sitting position. Legs crossed the same way, arms folded the same way. One friend swore he even matched the tilt of her head when she rested it on her hand. "That's not normal," she said, half laughing, half nervous. "Cats don't do that." We didn't have an answer for her. We still don't, not really. Someone in the family posted a short compilation online. Nothing fancy, just phone clips stitched together. Within a few days it had more views than anything we'd ever shared before. The comments came fast. That's not a cat, that's a tiny person. I've watched this 11 times, and I still don't believe it. My dog can't even sit on command, and this cat is out here doing yoga. People started asking if they could come by, just to see if Oliver would copy them too. A few actually did. Every time, without fail, he'd study them first, quiet, careful, almost formal about it, before mirroring some small piece of what they did. It became a kind of ritual in the house. Someone would move, we'd all wait, half holding our breath, to see what Oliver would do with it. But underneath the laughter, something else was starting to become clear. Oliver wasn't performing for an audience. He didn't care about the phones or the attention. What he seemed to care about, what he was still, quietly, figuring out, was us. He wasn't just copying movements anymore. He was trying to become part of them. Orchestrated extended narrative continuation maintaining established tone. Orchestrated extended narrative continuation maintaining established tone. By the third week, the family had turned it into a game. The rule was simple. Whoever could find one movement Oliver wouldn't copy, won. Nobody won. My son tried dancing, full arm swings, spins, ridiculous footwork. Oliver hopped and pivoted beside him, missing most of the steps but somehow catching the rhythm of it, tail flicking in time. My daughter tried yoga poses, holding a wobbly tree pose with one leg tucked. Oliver sat on his haunches and lifted one back paw, teetering for a second before giving up and just staring at her, unimpressed with himself. We tried funny faces, tongue out, eyes crossed. Oliver squinted back at us, ears twitching, like he understood something was happening on our faces but couldn't quite locate the muscles to match it. Someone even pretended to fall asleep on the couch mid-sentence. Oliver curled up beside them within seconds, eyes closing halfway, breathing slow. Every attempt ended the same way, with all of us laughing, and Oliver looking mildly confused about why. Then my husband decided to raise the stakes. He sat down at the kitchen table with an old Rubik's Cube from the closet and started turning it, slow and deliberate, brow furrowed in concentration. Oliver jumped onto the table and watched. He couldn't solve it. Of course he couldn't. But when my husband set the cube down to answer his phone, Oliver walked over, put both paws on it, and rotated it, clumsily, a full turn in one direction, then back, before nudging it gently to the center of the table and sitting beside it like he'd just finished a job. Nobody said anything for a second, then the whole kitchen erupted. A few days later, we took him to the park on a leash, mostly out of curiosity, partly because the neighbors kept asking to meet him. A small crowd gathered almost immediately. Kids first, then a few teenagers, then a couple of older folks walking their own dogs who stopped to watch. A little girl waved at him from a few feet away. Oliver lifted one paw and waved back, slow and uncertain, like he was still deciding if that's what a wave was supposed to look like. A teenager sat down cross-legged on the grass to get a closer look. Oliver settled into the same position across from him, tail wrapped around his front paws. The small crowd clapped. Somebody's phone was out, recording. Oliver looked around at all of it, at the noise, the movement, the attention, with a kind of mild bewilderment, like he had no idea any of this was supposed to be a performance. But it was that evening, back home, that something shifted. My husband had a rough day at work. He didn't say much about it, just sat down on the edge of the bed after dinner, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing in particular, no jokes, no poses, nobody was testing him. Oliver walked in quietly, jumped up, and sat down beside him. He didn't wave, he didn't stretch, he didn't do anything performative at all. He just matched the posture, shoulders low, head down slightly, still. He sat there in that exact same quiet, heavy stillness, without making a sound, without asking for anything. It didn't feel like imitation anymore. It felt like comfort. My husband told me about it later, and he said it in a strange, quiet voice, like he was still working out what it meant. He wasn't trying to be funny, he said. He was just there, with me. That night, watching the two of them sit together in the dark living room, it hit me that we'd been getting it wrong from the start. We thought Oliver was performing tricks. We thought he was clever, or strange, or just plain funny. But maybe copying us was never about being funny at all. Maybe, in his own quiet, four-legged way, it was simply how Oliver said the only thing he knew how to say. I want to be with you. The last experiment wasn't planned. It just happened on an ordinary evening when nobody was trying to prove anything anymore. We were all in the living room after dinner, no phones out, no poses being tested, no games, just tired, quiet, end-of-day energy. Someone suggested it almost as a joke. What happens if we don't move at all? What happens if we just look at him? So we did. The whole family sat still. Nobody spoke. Nobody gestured. We just turned toward Oliver, wherever he was curled on the rug, and smiled at him. For a few seconds, nothing happened. He blinked at us, ears swiveling slightly, like he was waiting for the trick, the catch, the movement he was supposed to mirror. There wasn't one, and slowly his eyes softened. He blinked again, longer this time, that slow, deliberate blink cats give when they trust the room around them completely. A low purr started, barely audible at first, then steady. He stood, stretched once, and walked into the middle of us, curling into the small space between my daughter's knee and the corner of the couch. He wasn't copying anything. There was nothing left to imitate, no pose, no gesture, no expression to study and repeat. He was just there, folded into the middle of his family, because that's where he wanted to be. Nobody said much. We didn't need to. The next morning brought one last, unexpected moment, the kind you don't plan for, the kind that just lands in your lap. My husband stood in front of the bathroom mirror, running a hand through his messy morning hair, trying to flatten a piece that wouldn't cooperate. He gave up after a few seconds and walked out, still half asleep, thinking nothing of it. A minute later, I heard him call my name from down the hall, half laughing, half stunned. I found Oliver standing on the bathroom chair, staring straight into the mirror. He lifted one paw and dragged it slowly over his ear, smoothing the fur down, exactly the way my husband had just smoothed his own hair. He tilted his head at his reflection, studying it, adjusting, grooming himself with the same unhurried focus. My husband stood frozen in the doorway, watching. For a second, neither of them moved. Man and cat, both caught mid-routine, both a little startled to find the other one there. Then, at the exact same moment, without meaning to, they both reached up and scratched the back of their heads. The whole house heard the laughter that followed. Looking back now, it's strange to think this all started with a stretch and a yawn, two small, accidental moments that could have meant nothing. Some cats follow their owners around because they want food. Others do it out of simple curiosity, nothing more. But Oliver was different. He copied every little thing, not because he understood what any of it meant, but because in his own quiet way, he wanted to be part of it, part of every stretch, every laugh, every ordinary moment that made up our days. Somewhere between that first head scratch and this last one in the mirror, he stopped being just the cat we rescued. He became something else entirely, the family's smallest shadow, always a half second behind us, always trying to catch up, always choosing, again and again, to be exactly where we were. And honestly, we wouldn't trade that for anything.